Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kings of Fantasy Football's first episode in 2025. Happy New Year's to all the listeners since last episode was back in 2024. I'm your co host, Pablo, and here's my co host.
Leo.
On today's episode, we are going to essentially do a fantasy football reaction to the 2024 season that just wrapped up. And we're going to discuss essentially where players were drafted, so the average draft position, or ADP for short, and then compare that to where they actually finished this past season. So we're going to get the big elephant out of the room first, and that is the number one overall pick, which was Christian McCaffrey from the 49ers. He finished and that's obviously because he didn't play, but we still have to judge him based off of his ADP, and he finished in PPR according to Fantasy Pros, number 69 running back overall, which is obviously nowhere that his owners wanted him to finish, and that was obviously not only due to the injury that prevented him from playing the first 9 weeks, and he came back in week 10, did play, but then he got injured again. So that again is not where his fantasy managers wanted him to finish. So Leonard, I know you were one of those managers that drafted him number one overall. Kind of, going really early. Just want to see what your mindset would be coming into this new season. Are you taking him again? Are you staying away from him? Are you waiting to see, what the reports say? How are you tackling that?
Yeah, you're right. So definitely, one league. I had the number one pick overall, and I got suckered in one more time. But the thing is that we didn't know what was really happening. To be honest, we had a little inclination that that he was injured, but then all of a sudden, right before the season started, then it blew up into what it was. So. I know these teams always play close to the vest, and we kind of get the wool pulled over our eyes. That we get screwed sometimes, but that's the way fantasy football is sometimes. But heading into 2025, right now, definitely he's not the number one pick for me. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about those players later, but for me, like he might be like a second round, late first, early second round pick for me right now. Gotta wait to as news starts cycling in, whether they draft someone else or whatever, they might have to start looking ahead. Even though Mason played well and Garando plays well, you know there's some guys there too. So it's just a matter of seeing how the 49ers uh you know go move forward with him. Definitely, I think he's probably still going to be on the team next year, and there's a possibility he'll be on my team too, depending on how ADP is at that time. When we get to it. But for me, I would wait. As right now, maybe late first, early second, if I go with him, and obviously depending what's there, what's around at that time. How about
All
you?
right. Yeah. I it would have to be an extremely, extremely good value if I were to have him on my team. Um, I just think that 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 stigma that running backs have, as they get older, coming back from injuries, it's really difficult for them to, go back to what they were. But if I remember correctly, I mean, he got hurt when he was in Carolina, but then he had that resurgence when he came back and got traded to the Niners. So he has proven that he can bounce back, but you know, time will tell, and I'm definitely hoping that the Niners are more forthcoming this year. If they are going to say that he's healthy, especially fantasy managers are going to trust that. But I think there's going to be some fear, especially, like you said, he should not be, the number one overall pick next year. Like I said, we'll dive into that as we get closer to the new season. Now, these next two players essentially were average number 2 and 3 picks right after McCaffrey. I think we're going to spend a little bit of time on these two guys, which was CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill. So essentially both wide receivers, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 right off the board. So let's start with CeeDee Lamb. So CeeDee Lamb in PPR leagues, he finished number 8. Now I'm going to divert to you here since you've been doing this longer, but how do you value that? So the first wide receiver off the board finishing wide receiver 8, is that a good return on that pick?
Being that he lost his quarterback for the majority of the year, that's not bad. He still was a top 10 he was still a top 10 receiver, even though he lost his quarterback. I'll still draft him. He's not gonna be first for me out of the receivers there. He'll probably be behind Chase and Jefferson, but he's still a top 3, top 4 receiver in my eyes, for sure.
So I do agree that, having that quarterback carousel, Dak was hurt, and for him to still be a top 10 finish is actually really great for those managers because, you take away that starting quarterback, not every receiver can still produce numbers. So
and he also,
I agree.
And he also didn't even play the last couple games of the season.
Right.
And he still finished 8th.
And he still finished.
Yeah.
So okay, I can see why you would say that, it's still worth it considering everything that happened. 2024 was just riddled with injuries. So okay. Now what about the next guy? The next guy, he had his quarterback, but then same thing. He was not able to produce as Lamb did with the backups, and we're talking about Tyreek Hill, who again lost to due to injury, and he finished wide receiver number 18. So, in my point of view, obviously that's not the return that you want with the number 3 overall pick. If you did get Hill, I think this is just me. I think next year people are still going to be hesitant getting him, and I'm still saying this from a health standpoint of Tua. In these last few years, I don't know if he's been able to stay healthy for an entire year. So you, being the Fins fan that you are, how are you viewing Hill's ADP versus finishing wide receiver 18?
Like, to me, he was even more disappointing, way more disappointing than CeeDee was, because Tua actually came back at the end of the year, and even when he came back, to me, this offense was totally off. They weren't throwing downfield, which that's where Hill makes his bread and butter, and it was very disappointing, to be honest with you. In the second half of the season, there was only 2 games that he had over 100 yards. And he only had 3 the whole season. So, and it was disappointing. Tua wasn't throwing downfield. It could be obviously the offensive line didn't have the time to. He was scared. He did suffer another concussion, that he might be just one concussion away from ending his career. So it's a little scary, to be honest with you. Tyreek Hill, he's an awesome player. He became a little bratty too, a little bit towards the end of the year. He's a little questionable for me, and I'm gonna probably stay away from him unless he goes to another team for now. he's someone that I'm gonna probably pass on for now.
Yep. According to the stats, he barely had, a few games where he did get more than 20 points PPR, which is, should be a staple if you're going to be second wide receiver off the board. And like you said, depending on where he ends up, that may impact where he's drafted next year. Now I'm going to skip number 4 because that was Mr. Bijan Robinson, who I think, had an exceptional year. But the guy after him was Mr. Breece Hall, who averaged number 5 as far as being drafted, and then he ended up running back number 16 in PPR according to Fantasy Pros. I'll start off in saying I thought, or I kind of predicted that he would not be able to duplicate what he did when he was without Rodgers because he was the offense, essentially. And I was optimistic, hoping that he would be able to repeat that. Especially if you're a Jets fan, I'm sorry, because you had high expectations going into this year with a healthy Rodgers. You had Garrett Wilson, you had Breece Hall, and then we know what the season turned out to be, unfortunately. Finishing, running back 16 when you got drafted after Bijan, so essentially you're the second running back because Christian McCaffrey doesn't really count. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it was a little disappointing, I was high on him as well. To me, him and Bijan were right behind McCaffrey. I thought he was gonna have a breakout year. He started off nice, with 3 double-digit points. So then after that, he kind of fell off. Then he had a couple games of double-digit points. Then he fell off again. So it was a little bit inconsistent. He overall averaged a double-digit points, but it should have been more. Obviously Rodgers probably had to do with that. Maybe they stacked the box. Obviously, they drafted Braylon Allen, that he was more involved than I think many people thought. Even the other rookie they drafted, Davis, was also involved towards the end of the season. So if he was not getting the touches that after week 11, there was no week that he had over 14 touches in a game. I think Breece is one of those running backs that needs to get the ball. The more that the game goes on, the more he excels. The touches, especially towards the end of the game. But if they're splitting the carries, it's tough to do. So we'll see. There are some rumors that he might get traded this off season. And if he lands in a nice spot, he could be back on the rise again. But right now it's a little bit murky for Mr. Hall right now in my eyes.
Yeah, I think his new head coach Aaron Glenn summarized it pretty well in his first press conference that there's going to be changes. So it's going to be interesting to see, how that offense looks like on opening day. I agree with you as far as Allen, because when I saw Allen, and I think it was only a few games, he made the most out of his touches, and I knew it was going to affect Breece Hall's touches. And I just think, generally speaking, now the NFL is more of a, it's very rare to see those workhorse backs anymore. So it'll be interesting to see where Mr. Allen gets drafted next year. But this next trio of receivers, I think we might spend a little bit of the rest of our episode on, is because ADP was Brown, Chase, Jefferson, and where they ended up, according to Fantasy Pros, Chase was receiver number 1, Jefferson 2, and Amon-Ra 3. So it was like the reverse kind of where they got drafted. In a very, very way ahead outlook. I think that's probably where they're going to be drafted at, is Chase 1, just Jefferson 2, and Amon-Ra 3. But I think if you had either of these, or if maybe you somehow pulled off the heist of the century, ended up with both of these on your team, you were happy the entire year. And I was only one of them, because one of my leagues I did have Justin Jefferson, but I didn't have the other two.
Yeah, no, these three guys were horses for sure. Especially Chase and Jefferson. Those two, to me, are gonna be the top 2 picks, probably in every fantasy draft, PPR, next year, without a doubt. Right now, Jamar Chase to me is a little ahead. He has Joe Burrow throwing him the ball. They have the ultimate connection since their college days. So he should continue as long as they're both healthy. And Jefferson, doesn't matter who's behind center, he's gonna produce. He showed today. He's not like Tyreek Hill that disappears. This guy actually is a proven beast, man. So
man, in a little side subject, do you think Darnold gets re-signed by the Vikings?
I think they have to consider it. I think it really depends on how healthy, McCarthy's injuries coming along. If they see anything that he's not going to be ready. He should be ready, but it's going to be interesting for sure. The thing is, it's going to cost a little bit more now, so I don't know how their salary cap situation is.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
I think it would have costed them more had they done it before the playoff game. And analysts were talking about that. Analysts are even saying that even after the playoff game, he's like a Daniel Jones type money, like 40-50 million a year. Yeah. I don't know. He did finally prove. I mean, he had a good season. He put up good numbers. But you drafted McCarthy with the intent of him being the franchise quarterback. Like you said, depending on how it goes, I mean, if McCarthy's not going to be healthy, I may give him a 1-year deal,
right,
or maybe like a 2 or 3. But with hopefully they would tell him like, hey, you're the interim, while McCarthy gets healthy or something.
Yeah, I will give him at least 1 more year for sure. What's it gonna hurt? If they can, obviously they can swing it within their salary cap. It depends. If anyone comes in the open market looking for a quarterback, so there are a couple teams. But if I were them, I would definitely try to re-sign him for sure. And competition's always good. With the quarterback position, look at the Dolphins. Tua got hurt and nothing. Same thing with the Cowboys. Dak went down and nothing. I was a little disappointed with Dallas. Maybe this guy's Trey back there. Trey Lance. It would have been nice to see him given a chance. But
yeah, just to see what he would do.
Give him a chance. See what he has. Exactly.
That's what you got him for.
He's very athletic. He has a nice arm. Just for what you guys are out of it anyway. If he does horrible, it don't only help your draft position. So give him a chance and see what you have with him. But I was a little disappointed that they stuck with Cooper. But whatever. That's why the Cowboys are the Cowboys.
Going back to the wide receivers.
Yeah.
If Higgins does not get re-signed to the Bengals, do you think that and again, we're just speculating very early, do you think that greatly affects Jamar Chase's value?
It's probably only going to strengthen. That means he's going to get even more balls, probably. More looks, but it'll help. There was a rookie that I was a little bit high on, that Burton. Jermaine Burton from Alabama. I think he has a chance to come on, as well as that guy with a heart, Evanicius, whatever. He has a tough last name. Um, those guys are way below the level of Chase. So I think he's gonna get more targets and who knows, maybe they draft someone else this year. But we'll see. We'll see if any of these these first rookie second year guys that they had in their team can step up if Higgins goes. I don't think they can afford Higgins
And
one more year
Chase, yeah, man.
and Chase, so they gotta pay. You can't let go of Chase. Chase needs to get paid. So
I'm gonna be the first one to thank Higgins for my title.
mhm.
So a little breaking news: I'm a back-to-back champ in one of my leagues, and that was all because of
Nice.
Burrow and Higgins. Without that performance, in the championship, I didn't think he would score 3 touchdowns. And if you happen to be his owner and you benched him in the championship, I'm very sorry for that. But yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it would even strengthen, that argument. If Chase is the number 1 overall without Higgins, I think he's more of a definite. Now, moving on to number 9 overall pick, according to Fantasy Pros, who is playing in the Super Bowl this Sunday, Mr. Saquon Barkley. Man, if you drafted Saquon all the way in number 9, props to you, because you ended up with the overall running back number 2. Barely, number 2 due to Gibbs, because he had that big game at the end of the year, or a few games after Montgomery went down. That O-line in Philly is a beast. In this playoff run, I think he's broken off like 5 50-plus yard touchdowns already. And depending on how he does Sunday, I think he's like a few yards off of the record for playoffs, yardage. So, again, if you drafted him at 9, congrats, and he definitely paid you well in advance because he finished RB2. Leo, were you one of the lucky few who got him at that ADP, or maybe even got him later?
Yeah, definitely. There was I think one league that I got him in the second round.
Wow,
At
second
that,
round.
at that, so he's a beast, and I have him on my dynasty league that I traded from a few years back, and I'm loving life right now. I made it to the finals, but couldn't come through. But that's how it is. But yeah, no, he's to me he's the number 1 running back coming into next year. Obviously, it'll hopefully all these extra touches that he's had doesn't hurt his game. That he gets injured. Usually when running backs get a lot of touches, they kind of get banged up a little bit the following year. But honestly, if he's running untouched for long touchdowns,
Right,
really, is he
man.
really
It's
getting hurt?
just.
Extra hits. So we'll see. He's just what do you call it? Scrimmaging with these guys. So, but now he's had an excellent year, and it's good to see for him. All those years and with the Giants with that crappy offensive line. He finally has a good offensive line, and he was able to produce what we all thought he could be. Just a phenomenal talent.
So I'm not trying to pick on the Giants organization, but I still have to at least bring this up. And again, sorry to Giants fans, but not only did you let go of Barkley to a division rival, but I don't know if you've seen the clip of the general manager asking his son who he would draft, and his son said Jaden Daniels. So you let not only Barkley go to division rival, you allowed your division rival to draft Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
So, again, sorry to Giants fans, because had they kept Barkley, and then imagine if they would have drafted Daniels, it'd be a whole nother conversation. So wrapping up things up here. This next overall, which would be number 10, is his teammate, which is AJ Brown. So he was average draft position number 10, which made him wide receiver 6, and he finished as wide receiver 20 in PPR leagues, according to Fantasy Pros. So he got drafted again, pick 10, but finished wide receiver 20. He also dealt with an injury, for a few weeks. But looking at his stats, he was averaging pretty close to about 10 points a game. He did have a few games where he was under that threshold. I think, we were talking about this before the season started. That's a lot of mouths to feed in the Eagles offense. And you have Barkley, you have AJ, you have Devontae, who came up big in a few games. Just taking a look at who got the receiver closest to him that got drafted was Garrett Wilson and Nacua. And again, very early. Between those three names, are you taking a Nacua, or are you taking a Garrett Wilson over AJ Brown going into this season, or are you trusting Brown more?
Brown is always solid. As long as he's healthy, he's always solid. The thing is that with Barkley in town, they kind of shifted away from being. They kind of shifted away from being, a more pass happy, to a run heavy team. And not only that, but Jalen Hurts himself runs. So out of those three, I would probably go with Puka Nacua as the next receiver to get after those other guys that we talked about earlier.
So it'd be interesting, especially if you have Nacua.
It'd probably be like fifth for me, Puka.
Especially if you have Nacua in Dynasty, kind of how you've been mentioning that. There are reports that Kupp, might get traded, so that would essentially make Nacua the de facto number one, and even when Kupp was there, I think Nacua was the de facto number one. So it'll be interesting to see. So that essentially was the first round pick. So just kind of keep all of our listeners in the loop. I know we were away for a while, but we are going to try and get back into a rhythm. At least do bi-weekly episodes leading up to the NFL draft, and then do it more frequently. So again, everyone that tuned in last year, really appreciate it. So think of that as season 1 of our show. Now this is season 2. So excited to come back and continue this. For anyone that does still follow us, again, you can reach us, or you can listen to us on pretty much every major platform. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and then if you do have any questions, you can reach me on X, which is at ArchReaper. Please share. I usually always post the link. Share, follow on the platforms. Share it with your friends, family, anyone who's interested in fantasy football. Leo, where can they reach you?
You can reach me on X at Smooth1074. Thanks so much for listening. If you like the show, like Pablo said, like and subscribe. That helps us. And good luck, and enjoy the Super Bowl. Let's see if the Chiefs can make it to three in a row.
The three-peat, yeah.
The three-peat.
Super Bowl should hopefully it's fun. And again, thanks everyone for tuning in. See you guys.
Peace.